What's Russia's biggest nightmare in this war? Not tanks, not missiles, it's something far smaller, but far deadlier. The UJ-22 Kamikaze drone is wreaking havoc where it hurts most, slipping past defenses to strike Moscow, ammunition depots, and vital infrastructure. For the Kremlin, it's not just a weapon, it's a message. Nowhere is safe. But what makes this drone such a relentless threat? And why can't Russia stop it? The answers uncover a weapon so ingenious, it's reshaping the battlefield and forcing Putin to confront a nightmare he never saw coming. Now, Ukraine has used drones to attack targets in Moscow before, but on the night of November 10, 2024, it launched its largest such attack to date. The Russians announced that they had shot down at least 34 drones near Moscow. The attack injured several civilians and interrupted dozens of flights, but Moscow wasn't the only target. The Russian MOD said it intercepted 84 drones in total. The Ukrainian General Staff said the strikes included an ammunition dump in Bryansk, which is about 235 miles southwest of Moscow. This attack demonstrated Ukraine's ability to hit targets across a broad expanse of Russian territory with its drones. But the success of Ukraine's attack raises an interesting question. With Moscow being so important, why were any of Ukraine's drones successful in breaching its air defenses? Moscow has two layers for its air defense: the A-135M strategic missile defense system and the S-50M, which includes the S-300 PM2 and S-400 and the Pantsir self-propelled anti-aircraft weapon. But these layers of defense, with their powerful radars, are designed to target incoming missiles and aircraft. Ukraine's drones, in comparison, are challenging to detect by radar because of their smaller size, low speed, and materials they're manufactured from. Drones are often made of plastic, with only small metal engines powering some of the larger ones. These are not stealth drones per se, but their materials reduce their radar signatures. The Pantsir is ordinarily the system of choice against drones. Pantsir systems have destroyed more than 300 Ukrainian drones. However, detecting Ukrainian drones has also proven a challenge for it. The radar systems have to cut through the normal interferences they can expect in urban environments that can make drones difficult to distinguish from other phenomena. Russian systems have mistakenly targeted large flying birds. Russia also faces the problems Ukraine has faced when it dealt with Russian-purchased Shahid drones made by Iran. Using expensive missiles to shoot down cheap drones is not an effective use of resources in a war of attrition. This is why the Ukrainians have begun to make use of old-style flak cannons against the Shahid. Russia has also moved some of its air defense systems further south from Moscow to support efforts in the war. In January 2023, air defenses were installed on the roofs of buildings in the city, indicating a shortage. Because of the sanctions, the weapons sent to the front will be harder to replace. Ukraine naturally kept quiet about where it launched its drone attacks from, but it's possible that its agents in Russia used them against specific targets that they knew the location of beforehand. Ukraine has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to carry out sabotage attacks deep into enemy territory. A recent example came in late September when Ukraine's military intelligence agency, the GUR, damaged a minesweeper ship in the Baltic. Ukraine has proven itself a master at these tactics, and it's likely that its agents have been active using the smaller FPV drones it's employed to such great effect on the front lines. But when it comes to penetrating multi-layered air defense systems, it's necessary to have more than one option. Fortunately, the Ukrainians have many long-range drones they can use against targets deep within Russia from their own territory. With this in mind, the question about the recent Moscow attack is, who done it? We can begin with a domestic design called the UJ-22, called the Airborne. This drone resembles a miniature aircraft. One would be forgiven for thinking it has similarities with the planes in the skies of World War I. The UJ-22 is both a reconnaissance and an attack drone. For reconnaissance, it has a 64-megapixel camera that feeds its images back to its operators in real time. In attack mode, the drone can be armed with a warhead to make it a kamikaze device, or with up to 44 pounds of droppable unguided bombs. The type of bombs include up to 4 82mm mortar mines or 6 adapted rounds from the RPG-7. The Airborne can stay flying for up to 6 hours and has a range of 500 miles. It's 12 feet long and has a wingspan of 14 feet. Ukraine was using this drone from at least March 2022. On the 30th of that month, Russia's MOD published footage of the destruction of a UJ-22 via its Pantsir air defense system. The UJ-22 has also been attacking Moscow from at least February 2023, meaning that it could have taken part in the raid on November 10th. The Ukrainian drone crews aren't content to just show off their throwback designs though. There's another long-range drone in fashion among them. Meet the AQ-400 Scythe. It has tandem wings and a box-like fuselage. The range is shorter than the UJ-22, topping out at 465 miles, but it can deliver a higher payload of up to 70 pounds for a standard mission and 154 pounds if there's a target at shorter ranges that the Ukrainians want to see gone. A similar idea, though, with yet another design, comes in the form of the AN-196 Liati, Fierce. If you see this and think you're looking at a Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drone, you're not far off the mark. This drone can carry a payload of 50 kilograms. The Liati is one of the primary weapons of choice for a Ukrainian drone unit attached to the GUR that has a dedicated mission of targeting Russian territory. This unit hit an ammunition depot in Toropets between Moscow and St. Petersburg in September. The Ukrainians claim that this depot stored artillery shells, glide bombs, and Iskander missiles. The fires were visible for miles. Footage of the AN-196 being shot down on November 10th confirmed that this drone was used in the attack on Moscow, meaning that it has a range of about 375 miles at least. If you need to hit targets at really long range though, go for the UJ-26 Beaver. This drone can fly up to 620 miles with a payload capacity of 44 pounds. This drone was introduced in 2023 and entered mass production by December of that year. It can cruise at a top speed of 125 miles per hour. The Ukrainians have used the Beaver to attack Moscow on several occasions. Such incidents include a strike on high-rise buildings in the summer of 2023, and possibly even an attack on the Kremlin itself. The Beaver is essentially Ukraine's version of the Shahid 136, although it has a lower range. Speaking of the Shahid, it fell victim to another Ukrainian competitor this last spring. The A-22 Foxbat is another domestic design with a propeller. If you were thinking this one looks like a vintage propeller plane too, you'd be right, because the drone is probably a variant of Ukraine's Aeropract A-22 Foxbat Ultralight. This aircraft is normally designed for recreational flights, but the Ukrainians have adapted it to a remote-controlled UAV for very long-range missions. Perhaps that's recreation of a different sort for Ukraine's drone pilots. Compared to the airborne, this one seems to be a specialized kamikaze weapon. If you're a Ukrainian commander, you'd prefer it if long range is what you really need. On April 2, 2024, this drone hit a factory in Yelabuga, Tatarstan, which reportedly manufactured Shahid-type drones. The hit occurred 870 miles behind the front lines, which means this guy is more than capable of hitting either Moscow or St. Petersburg. How do we know it was responsible for the attack on the Shahid factory? Well, because it was captured on video in good detail. Its profile stands out. But Ukraine has more tricks up its sleeve. What if the mission requires something faster? The Ukrainians might have been denied the ability to use traditional cruise missiles, but the solution? Turn a drone into a sort of cruise missile. Meet the UJ-25 Skyline. This is a jet-powered drone that was first confirmed on the battlefield in December 2023, when it crashed onto the roof of a house in the Russian-occupied city of Berdyansk. This one has a one-way ticket, as the UJ-25 is always a kamikaze drone. The UJ-25 is the evolution of the earlier UJ-23 Topaz. The manufacturer, Ukrojet, claims that the Topaz has a range of about 250 miles, a cruising speed of 370 miles per hour, and a top speed of 500 miles per hour. The Warzone postulates that the upgraded Skyline has twice the range of its predecessor, long enough to reach Moscow. The shape of both the Topaz and Skyline suggests that these drones have additional stealth qualities. These include the chine lines around the fuselage and the recessed intake at the top. In addition to the new drones, the Ukrainians have displayed a penchant for finding new purposes in old Cold War equipment. At the beginning of the war, Soviet anti-tank grenades were used with small drones. Early in 2024, Soviet-era S-200 air defense systems were used in offensive roles to shoot down Russian aircraft, including valuable AWACS planes. Well, who would have guessed that Ukraine could make use of Soviet UAVs too? The Tu-141 drone was introduced in the 1970s as a reconnaissance craft. It has a range of 620 miles. These drones are monsters weighing 7 tons, but they have jet propulsion and can reach velocities of 600 miles per hour. Ukraine began using it in 2014, but when the full-scale invasion began, the defending forces saw these behemoths as a convenient source of improvised cruise missiles, which can fly at altitudes as high as 20,000 feet or as low as the tree line. The first successful use of these drones as a cruise missile came on December 5, 2022. 2 of them struck 2 bomber bases 300 miles inside Russian territory. However, only 152 of these UAVs were made, spanning the years from 1979 to 89, so these would likely only be used against the highest priority targets that Ukrainian intelligence deems have a good chance of suffering successful hits. Ukraine has another missile drone, the Palyanitsia. The first images of this drone were released on August 25, 2024 by President Zelensky, who announced that the weapon had seen its first successful use in combat the day before. Although Zelensky said that the 24th was the debut date, it's possible that the drone was part of the arsenal that attacked the Savas-Leka air base on August 14th. The attack was 413 miles away from the Ukrainian border. The drone, named after a form of Ukrainian bread, is essentially a lightweight cruise missile. Few details are known about the drone, but it's likely a turbojet-powered projectile with a warhead of about 44 pounds and a range of between 310 and 435 miles. It combines lifting wing, electronic control, and jet technology in what appears to be a unique way, according to Alexander Dmitriev, who advises the commander of the ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on UAVs and information technology. Ukraine's digital transformation minister, Mikhailo Fedorov, claims that the Palyannitsia costs less than $1 million per unit. Although this is cheaper than a typical cruise missile, it's still more expensive than other drones, which means Ukraine will probably be selective in how to employ this munition. So aside from the Lyati, whose presence was confirmed, any of these drones could have taken part in the recent attack on Moscow simultaneously. That Ukraine has so many available is a good indicator of its drone industry's health. The attack of November 10th was likely not a coincidence. On the previous evening, Russia and North Korea signed the new Mutual Defense Pact and Comprehensive Strategic Partnership that they agreed in June, amid American intelligence reports of 3,000 North Korean troops deployed to Russia. The North Koreans are training at various facilities there, with Washington warning that they would be fair game if they came to Ukraine. Russia wasn't silent about the Ukrainian drone raid. It launched 145 drones at Ukraine on the same night. Ukraine said it shot 62 of them down. Targets of the Russian attack included the important city of Odessa. Russia has been forced to recognize the growing threat of Ukrainian drones after completely ignoring the problem before the war. The police in St. Petersburg have since created an anti-drone team, and the municipal authorities in Moscow banned civilian drone flights in May 2023 to ensure they could keep track of what was going on in the skies. Russia claims that it's developing laser and microwave weapons to add to its air defense network, but these are unlikely to be introduced in the near future. Reliable data in an authoritarian country like Russia is hard to come by, but the Levada Center, which monitors public opinion there, recently found that 54% of those surveyed favored immediate peace negotiations, with 38% opposed. There has also been wide opposition to additional waves of mobilization, which has forced Putin to increasingly turn to foreign mercenaries to make up for the shortfall the elevated casualties in Ukraine are creating. The Putin regime has felt the need to increasingly crack down on dissenting voices too, to make sure everything continues going smoothly. However, only 20% of respondents in the Levada poll said that Russia should make concessions to Ukraine in a bid to end the war. This data point indicates that even though an increasing number of Russians want to see the war come to an end, they do not want to give up the territory that the special military operation has acquired. Putin cannot easily give this territory up either, because doing so will be tantamount to a confession that his people have suffered for nothing. It would end any claim to legitimacy that he has among his people, who have implicitly agreed to permit his authoritarian rule in exchange for protection and tangible gains. This is why the drone attacks on Moscow are so critical for the Ukrainian cause. The best way to tip public support against Putin and the war is to repeatedly attack Russia's largest and most influential population centers, and to prove to their people that he cannot protect them. Vladimir Putin has ruled Russia for longer than any autocrat since Joseph Stalin. Stalin supposedly said that one death was a tragedy, while a million deaths was a statistic. There is in fact little evidence that this phrase came from him, but Putin has nevertheless taken something like it to heart in this war. Russia might suffer as many as 1.5 million casualties over the next few years, according to Britain's top general, Sir Roland Walker. However, as long as those casualties are out of sight and out of mind, the residents of Moscow and St. Petersburg, the centers of power in Russia, will stay comfortable. Making them more uncomfortable is Ukraine's best way to win the war. Unfortunately for the Ukrainians, their Western allies have proven less than cooperative in making this happen, to Kyiv's understandable frustration. But Ukraine has increasingly demonstrated its inventiveness in finding ways out of its operational straitjacket. From the beginning, Ukraine has used drones to do damage that only much more expensive weapon systems had inflicted before. It's devastated Russia's once-feared tank fleet with much cheaper weapons than other tanks or advanced anti-tank missiles like the Javelin. It's decimated the Russian Black Sea Fleet, not with other ships, submarines, or anti-ship missiles, but primarily with drones in the seas and skies. Ukraine's FPV drone pilots have gotten so good that they can specifically target high-level officers in the Russian army for a much cheaper price than a precision rocket or even an artillery shell. So it shouldn't surprise you that Ukraine has been increasingly able to substitute drones for cruise missiles. When 2024 began, President Zelensky made the production of 1 million FPV drones a top priority for his country's defense industry. By February, Ukraine was already set to surpass that goal. In 2025, Ukraine's drone industry might well have an even more ambitious objective: produce enough drones to pose a constant threat to Moscow and St. Petersburg, in the same way that Russia's Shahid drones have threatened Ukrainian cities, with a mind to finally end the war on terms far more favorable than it can accept now. What do you think is coming next in Ukraine's drone war? Don't forget to let us know in the comments. Also, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more military analysis from military experts. Now go and check out Ukraine's drones are dropping anti-tank mines as bombs, or click this other video instead.